Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the news at 7 on 90 International. I'm Ruth Aguele. Let's bring you the headlines. Children's Day holds without usual fanfare as President Buhari assures of better future for leaders of tomorrow. Federal government to roll out measures towards safe reopening of schools. Plus, Nigerian Senate clears the air on budgetary processes for the Niger Delta Development Commission. We'll begin with today's PTF briefing. The Federal Ministry of Education will soon roll out measures towards a safe reopening of schools. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force, Boss Mustapha, stated this at the COVID-19 media briefing in Abuja. He said Nigerians should see the fight against coronavirus as part of efforts to build a safe and secure future for the children who the world is celebrating today. He said countries in Africa, contrary to global stakeholders, are experiencing slower rates of coronavirus transmission.
Our children and assure them, their parents and all stakeholders alike that all hands are on deck to reopen the schools at a safe time. We therefore use this medium to urge states, local governments, proprietors and other stakeholders to begin to take steps that will facilitate an early and safe reopening.
Minister of State for Health also spoke on several efforts being made to contain further spread of the virus.
Any Nigerian, we're not prepared to do trial and error with the health of our people. Whatever is approved for use in Nigeria must meet the required standard as determined by the relevant agencies. Let me at this point again advise us against crowding, as this increases the risk of disease transmission.
So studies have now shown, using this PCR test, in addition to something we call viral culture day to day, that the longest viability period of the virus is about 10 days. So this virus, even though we can still find it on PCR after 10 days, 20 days, and you can see in some of the cases here, some of the celebrated cases we spoke about and engaged our minds, because we couldn't discharge those patients at that time because we did not know how long the virus remained viable for. But now with this new finding, we know that the virus is viable for around 10 days max. So we're now relooking at our practice, both in terms of discharge criteria and even who to keep in hospital and who can stay at home and for how long.
All right, let's bring you a global update on COVID-19. More than 5.6 million cases of coronavirus and over 350,000 deaths have been confirmed worldwide. According to Johns Hopkins University, Haman Jabani brings us that update.
The Nigerian Center for Disease Control has reported 276 new cases of coronavirus in Nigeria. Lagos has 161, Rivers 36, Edo 27, Kaduna 19, Nasarawa 10, Oyo 6, Kano 4, Delta and Ebonyi 3 each, Gombe 2, Ogun, Ondo, Borno, Abia and Bauchi 1 each. There are 8,344 confirmed cases of coronavirus in Nigeria, 2,385 discharged and 249 dead so far. The tally by Johns Hopkins University as at 6 p.m. local time shows that globally coronavirus cases have reached 5,737,518, while 354,230 have died and 2,467,241 have recovered. Meanwhile, the European Commission on Wednesday proposed €750 billion aid package to help Europe's economic recovery from the fallout of the coronavirus pandemic, which has killed over 350,000 people globally. The plan will require unanimous backing from all the 27 nations in the bloc. South Korea reported its highest death spike in new coronavirus case in about a month and a half. An outbreak linked to a now closed facility run by one of the country's largest e-commerce companies. The Korean Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported 40 new cases of the deadly bug, the highest deadly number in 49 days, bringing the total tally to 11,265. Saudi Arabia reported 1,815 new coronavirus cases and 14 deaths, bringing the total number of infections in the kingdom to 78,541 and the total death toll to 425 according to the Saudi Health Ministry. Poles will be allowed to go out without protective masks from May 30th, and cinema, theatre and gyms will be open on June 6th. The government said on Wednesday this is part of the steady lifting of restrictions imposed to halt the spread of the new coronavirus. Poland, a country of 38 million people, has so far reported 22,074 cases of coronavirus and 1,024 deaths.
Let's shift to Children's Day. Hope, assurance and promise of a better future is the message of President Muhammadu Buhari to the Nigerian children on their special day. Momsode Mendeti reports.
May 27th is marked globally as Children's Day. This year's edition is weighed down by the battle against the dreadful COVID-19 pandemic, with children particularly affected, resulting in the shutting down of schools across the world. This educational malaise set the backdrop for the virtual Children's Day celebration at the Ministry of Women Affairs headquarters in Abuja, the very first of its kind. The Minister of Women Affairs, alongside her counterparts in the FCT, Mohammed Musa Bello, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari, were on standby to mark the day.
For them to remain very positive, very hopeful, the sky will be their limit.
With children participating online from across states of the Federation. A message from President Muhammadu Buhari to the Nigerian children on their special day is one of sensitivity, warmth and hope, especially for the girl child.
To ensure sustenance of actions to promote the education of the girl child, I have charged the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs to implement the following interventions among others. The national strategy to end girl child and other cultural practices and social norms militating against the girl child education. Collaborate with the Federal Ministry of Education to increase the enrollment, retention and completion rates of girls in primary and secondary schools across the nation. Urge the domestication of the Child Rights Act by all the states of the Federation.
The celebration has as its theme promoting girl child education for sustainable development. Momso Damien Dati, NTA News.
And as nations across the globe celebrate this year's Children's Day, Nigerian children are advocating more funding in the education sector. Elizabeth Omoroyi, who went around the FCT to see how the children are celebrating with the lockdown, reports that the children are eager to go back to the classrooms.
May 27 is traditionally the children's holiday in Nigeria, a day set aside by the United Nations to raise awareness on the needs and rights of children in the country. However, they will not be celebrating this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. With the partial lockdown in the FCT, major streets were devoid of the usual march past, costume and cultural attire parade, face painting, and visits to cinemas and parks to explore and have a feel of the bouncy castles.
This park used to be very busy on a day like this, but today there are no activities. No thanks to coronavirus.
As this year's Children's Day celebration takes a different twist, many children were indoors, while some were spotted with their parents on the streets shopping. So, how do they feel not celebrating their day?
I didn't see some money to celebrate it by myself.
really? Are you the one to spend the money?
Yes. I feel very sad because every 27th of May we used to celebrate together.
They didn't say Happy Children's Day in the first day, in the first time in the morning.
The Nigerian child thus have expectations, even as learning continues online at home.
I want to go back to school to go and see my friends. And I want to continue with my education.
As efforts intensify to curb COVID-19, the children are appealing to the government to formulate stiffer penalties to punish those who violate their rights and make frantic efforts to engage children out of school in the classrooms. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
Children are just adorable, right? Well, apart from the virtual celebration organized by the Ministry of Women Affairs, we saw that earlier, this year's Children's Day in Abuja is devoid of the usual glamour and display of colorful parades, as most children were compelled to mark separately in their homes. Momsode Mendeti captured the scenario.
It's a new dawn. The day is bright and beautiful, and just once in every year, specially dedicated to celebrate children the world over. But this year it is low-key due to the COVID-19. It wouldn't have made any difference for 12-year-old Daniel Adegbeiga. So he still would have marked the day with a bucket of sachet water, enduring the hot sun or rain, whichever comes, in search of buyers.
Now I can almost see my friends. March past, everything is closed down, so sell and go. The first lockdown, I was at home, I was not doing anything. So we suffer before we eat. And when we come to market, she will not sell. Sometimes we eat once in a day. Before my friend now introduced me to selling of pure water.
He is not alone in this. There are many other children hawking to support their parents on their special day.
We did not march because of the coronavirus and there's no school.
But then, there are some privileged ones who would have been at the parades and other places to mark the Children's Day.
I wish our government to pay the children father so that they will have money to celebrate it at home.
I want children to cough inside their hand and sanitize their hand and keep distance.
But this year, the only option is to play around within the confines of their home. For some of them, it is an opportunity to develop skills and talents. So they came up with this presentation to commemorate the Day for Children online.
We have further time to celebrate it after defeating COVID-19.
We need quality education, sane and safe environments.
But under your guidance and leadership, so that we can grow with positive mind.
I believe that one day we shall tell a story on the agony COVID-19 brought to the world.
We wish you happy Children's Day.
But on this same day is a neighborhood market with a petty vegetable seller. As a child, she was full of big dreams to become an economist. But that never saw the light of day. Her dreams were shattered when she dropped out of school at primary level.
I dey find money to train my children. My children, I don't see money train them. I want make them go school.
To avert future occurrence of Nkechi's story in today's Girl, the theme, promoting girl child education for sustainable development, is the focus for this year.
Everyone in the society must join hands to ensure that the girl child goes to school. Education is the right of every Nigerian child.
With this administration's determination to ensure that the girl child enjoys her full rights, the federal government directed that all girls must be enrolled and must attend schools.
While the Ministry of Women Affairs decided to mark the Children's Day by virtual interaction, one wonders if the likes of Daniel and his friends hawking at the market even knew about it. Momso Damien Dati, NTA News.
All right. Thank you, Mamso, for that. President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, has felicitated with Nigerian children on the occasion of the 2020 Children's Day. In a statement by the Special Advisor to the President of the Senate on Media and Public Affairs, Ola Awoniyi, Senator Lawan noted that the day was set aside to highlight the realities of children in society with a view to promoting their well-being and happiness now and for the future. The Senate President said the surest way to a happy and fulfilling future for our children is to provide them with quality education and health care. and to protect them against all forms of abuse, as he urged states who haven't enacted the Child Rights Act of 2003 to do so. Senator Lawan expressed worries over the number of out-of-school children and called for more commitment by parents, while states and federal government should collaborate to improve the lives of Nigerian children. Similarly, Speaker of the House of Representatives has assured that he would not relent on pushing the rights of the Nigerian child, including their inalienable right to good education. The Speaker, in a statement to mark this year's Children's Day, said Nigerian children must be given all the necessary care and attention, especially quality education, that they require to attain their goals in life, saying he will always identify with the Nigerian children wherever they are. The Speaker adds that he will always champion the cause of Nigerian children both in the Parliament and outside. He stressed that all policies, including legislative framework, must be put in place to give qualitative education to Nigerian children to reduce the number of out-of-school children. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.
Make your home the place to be with GoTV's super cool kids channels.
That sounds fun.
From funky friends that'll keep even the little ones busy.
All right, everybody, let's do this!
To learn as you watch educational shows for curious young minds.
You can do some amazing things.
There's plenty for everyone. Tune in to our kids shows and get everything you need to keep the kids entertained and learning the fun way. GoTV, live it, love it.
Still celebrating the Nigerian child, joining us now is UNICEF Education Specialist, Mrs. Azuka Menkinti, to look at the theme for this year's Children's Day, which is promoting girl-child education for sustainable development, particularly in this coronavirus pandemic. Thank you very much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
All right, now, can you give us your perspective on the situation of the Nigerian child in terms of access to basic things in life?
Well, the 2020 celebration of the Nigerian child is coming at a very critical stage that Nigeria and the world is dealing with, are dealing with issues around COVID-19 pandemic. For the Nigerian child, access to basic facilities, a lot has happened. There's some improvement, but a lot still needs to happen, because we are still struggling with issues around getting children to go to school, to have access to quality education. We are still dealing with issues of the right to children for identity. More children, some children are yet to have registered at birth. So a lot of issues that we are dealing with in Nigeria today are also issues that the children are also facing. As of today, we are also dealing with issues around delivery of quality education for all Nigerian children. So we believe that with all of this consciousness that is happening at the moment in terms of how to ensure that the Nigerian child is able to access his or her right to education, that a lot of changes will begin to come in.
All right, and talking about this access to quality education, as the world marks Children's Day today, is the girl child in a better position?
Well, the fact that the Nigerian government has given the theme for this year's celebration around girls' education is a step forward to show that a lot of consciousness are being created on the need for the girl child to be educated. Usually we would have seen issues where girls are being denied their access to education because of a lot of issues that deal with issues of social barriers, issues of traditional norms, cultural norms. And again, looking at when I was watching the news, I saw children also hawking. So you can see that as of today, we're also dealing with poverty around the children. And but for the girl child,
okay,
within the theme of promoting girls' education for the achievement of the SDGs, it has come clear to us that educating girls would lead to achievement of the SDGs across the world and also in Nigeria. Because looking at all the SDGs, it is clear to us that every SDG is connected to ensuring gender equality that can only be achieved when the girls are able to access their right to education.
All right, let's look at it from a general perspective. In the face of COVID-19, what is the hope of children in rural areas accessing education? We know the classrooms are moving online.
Yeah, when the COVID-19 came up, the first thing that UNICEF did was to actually work with, collaborate with other partners and the Ministry of Education and UBEC to see how we can ensure that learning does not get stalled within the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of states and even the Federal Ministry of Education has come up with a lot of online learning processes for children. But then, clearly, the child in the rural community is also disadvantaged because it's expected that that child in the rural community should have access to television, access to radios, and access to all sorts of online learning. So clearly, within the circumstance and the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic, that rural child in the community is actually missing some part of his learning program. So we're also pleading and also supporting the children in demanding that schools are reopened, but then before the schools are reopened, there are certain guidelines and operations that must be in place.
All right. Thank you very much, Mrs. Azuka Menkinti. Thank you very much. We hope and pray for a better future for our children. She is the UNICEF education specialist. Right, let's look at other issues. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says plans are underway to amend the act establishing Nigeria's National Endowment for Arts in a bid to meet the current demands on the sector as a result of the COVID-19 impact on the sector. The minister stated this while addressing African ministers responsible for arts, culture and heritage. Anthony Forson reports.
At this forum of African ministers, which was virtual under the auspices of the African Union Commission, is to allow member nations share experience on the impact of COVID-19 and come up with workable solutions to the current challenges facing the art, culture and heritage sector. Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed, who doubles as the second vice chairperson at the third Specialized Technical Committee on Youth, Culture and Sports at the virtual forum, pointed out that COVID-19 pandemic has impacted negatively on the world, with arts, culture and heritage among the sectors worst hit.
For us here in Nigeria, the impact has been particularly devastating because of the importance and relevance of the sector to the national economy. The Nigerian creative industry is large, diverse, dynamic, and critical for economic growth, development, and diversification.
It is in realization of this impact that the federal government, Lai Mohammed said, is desirous of amending the act establishing the National Endowment for Arts as a deliberate way of supporting every area of the creative industry. Of worthy of note, the minister pointed out, is the setting aside of 50 billion naira for smallholder businesses and the creative industry by the Central Bank of Nigeria.
I have no doubt that the measures we are putting in place will yield positive results in sustaining the creative industry in Nigeria in the days to come.
He also intimated members on the platform that the federal government has also set up a 22-member stakeholders committee to come up with immediate, short and long-term economic stimulus and initiatives for the industry in order to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. In their separate submissions, other ministers who equally described COVID-19 as a disaster that has befallen the sector all call for a collective approach in tackling the impact of the pandemic on the sector. They said, as an industry whose operation has been brought to a standstill, it has become so on account of restrictions on humans to stop its spread. For instance, social distancing and the ban on gatherings. On her part, Commissioner for Social Affairs African Union, Amira El Fadil, appealed to member states to come up with a common resolve in their shared values to contribute in this common drive to finding a strategic solution to the negative impact of COVID-19. For the director, Africa Center for Disease Control, John Nkengusona, who gave graphic status of the pandemic and its spread across Africa, warned that the situation is one that calls for serious attention by African leaders. In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
In checking the excesses of some media organizations in Nigeria, the National Broadcasting Commission has sanctioned 28 broadcast stations in the first quarter of this year, just as it also commended the media in carrying out national service since the coronavirus pandemic began. Haman Jabani will tell us more.
With the presentation of the amendment of the 6th edition of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code to stakeholders on the 26th March 2020, the code is now ready and the National Broadcasting Commission has published the provision of the amendment of the code to the public.
The amendments to the code make new provisions on increased local content involvement in the broadcast industry. It also makes provisions for increased advertising revenue opportunities for local broadcast stations, indigenous broadcast stations, and also for content producers. The amendments also make further restrictions for monopolistic and anti-competitive behavior in the broadcast industry.
Acting Director General of the NBC, Professor Armstrong Idachaba, informed that under the first quarter of the year, 28 broadcasting stations were sanctioned for violating relevant codes dealing with obscenity, political breach, hate speech, unprofessionalism, unverified claims, advertisement, technical and reportage on COVID-19, and all stations have been queried or sanctioned according to the provision of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code.
And has come up with certain provisions, charges that broadcasters will pay to the signal distributors, and charges that are also supposed to be paid to the regulator. In all, the idea of the Commission is to ensure that we lower the entry barriers, we make the fees more acceptable, so that we can use that to stimulate greater participation in the digital ecosystem.
The Commission commended media organizations for their sacrifice under the coronavirus pandemic and urged them to adhere strictly to the provision of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code and the National Broadcasting Code Cap N11 Law of the Federation 2004. Haman Jabani, NTA News.
Let's look at technology. It is now clear from the effect of COVID-19 that every nation must have the capacity for self-reliance and confidence to take care of itself through the application of science and technology. This was the reaction from the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya Onu, as he received the report of the Ministerial Committee on Repositioning and Strengthening of the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology to effectively carry out its statutorily charged responsibilities. The idea behind the report is based on rebranding and strengthening the ministry, and it comes with assurances of full implementation, as the minister emphasizes that there is no other time than now for the nation to explore opportunities in science and technology, given the wake-up call from COVID-19.
And we have the potential to do it, to make Nigeria a truly great nation. It is clear from the effect of COVID-19 that any nation that wants to develop must have the capacity to produce many of the things that the people need. We must be able to feed ourselves, to house our people, train our people, ensure that the sick are taken care of, fight poverty, defeat poverty, and build a peaceful, secure, and prosperous nation. And to do this, it is science, technology, and innovation that can help us achieve all this.
And to felicitation, President Muhammadu Buhari sends warm felicitations to Minister of Transportation, Honorable Chibuike Rotimi Amici on his 55th birthday, commending his resulted-oriented leadership style, which positively reflects on people and projects he has supervised over the years. A presidency statement says the president joins the All Progressives Congress, family and political associates of the former governor of Rivers State in celebrating the milestone, while congratulating him for a meteoric political rise underlined by his forthrightness, diligence and deep sense of loyalty and patriotism. As the Minister of Transportation turns 55, President Buhari believes his investments in the development of Rivers State and current efforts in building infrastructure across the country will always be remembered by posterity, urging him to stay focused on the larger picture of working to improve lives. Right, that's the news for now. Thanks for your time. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.